Hey friends, welcome back, or if you're new I hope you stick around. I'm officially back from hiatus and bringing you some delicious SakuAtsu content. I was planning on making this a one-shot or a two-shot, but I felt bad since it was taking me forever to post, so I've made it into a series. Hope you all enjoy.
Since Atsumu had begun his career as a pro volleyball player, he's traveled the world. He's spent his time meeting up with rivals and friends. The boy was quite the popular sensation around the world, but especially in Japan. More specifically, in Hyogo Prefecture, where he was born and raised, his biggest supporters were there. Currently, the blonde was on his way back home to visit for the holidays. It's a surprise visit, no one knows, not even his twin brother has the slightly idea that he's coming home. He wanted to surprise everyone this year since it's been so long since he's visited. He's missed out on so much due to his demanding schedule. He just knew this visit will be one for the history books. Atsumu had a trick up his sleeve. He wanted to add an even bigger surprise on top of his surprise visit. Why show up by yourself when you can show up with a fiancé? He knew it would be hard to pull off since the blonde is as single as can be, but what else can you expect from Atsumu? He's pulled countless of tricks and pranks on the people around him, all of them harmless, if you count putting dog poo under Osamu's pillow as harmless, but that's for a different story. The most difficult part of this plan was to find someone who was willing to go along with it. Sure, he could ask one of his friends, but that would be too obvious. He needed a person who his family doesn't know, and there was only one man in his daily circle that fit those requirements. Sakuatsumi. Atsumu barely knew the man. He's only met the man a little over a year ago when Sakusa joined MSBY. Since he's joined they've become friends, acquaintances. He wasn't sure what to actually call them, but one thing's for certain, the Ravenet was his type. Sakusa was fairly attractive, well liked and respected in the volleyball community, and his voice gave Atsumu butterflies every time he called out to him during their matches. It was on the trip back from an away game when Atsumu proposed this crazy idea. You can't be serious. The Ravenet looked at him as if he's grown a second head. This guy really can't be actually asking him that. I am. Please, I need your help. Atsumu clasps his hands together, pleading for him to agree to his plan. And why would I even agree to something as preposterous as that? It'll just be for a couple of weeks, I promise. After that I'll leave you alone. Sakusa took in a deep breath. He knows this idiotic plan of Atsuma's wouldn't work. His family would see right through it, wouldn't they? Why me? Couldn't you have asked Hinata-kun or Bakuto-san for this task? Both Shokun and Bokun are in public relationships. That'll be a dead giveaway if it's them. I'll ask this again. Why me? Atsumu went silent, his brows furrowing slightly in thought. No reason. There's no way in hell I will tell him that the main reason why I picked him was because I'm attracted to him. He thought to himself. He just got laughed at if he confessed the real reason behind his intentions. The Ravenet raised an eyebrow at the other, not entirely convinced by the blonde's pathetic attempt to avoid answering. He let out a huff, silently regretting what he's about to say. I'll think about it. Atsumu's eyes lit up as this means there's some form of hope. Really, you'll do it? No, I said I'll think about it. Fine, let me know your answer by next week, that's when we'll be leaving. Sakusa nodded before turning to look out of the bus window, clearly not interested in talking about this topic anymore. Over the next few days, Kiyumi contemplated long and hard about if he should agree or not, his mind playing endless scenarios on how this will play out. None seem to work within his favor. His heart wants him to accept. It may possibly be the only way he'd have a proper chance to get closer to the setter, but his mind is telling him to reject. He kept listing out the pros and cons of this. He could hope that this plan could work out in his favor. He's been silently pinning after the blonde for years now, ever since the training camp when they were second years. It was during a practice match in where Sakusa fell. Seeing the way Atsumu played, it set something off inside him, something he's never felt before, and desperately, the 16-year-old in Kiyumi didn't want to let that feeling go. He wanted to explore that feeling. He knows at the end of this, the two of them will return to being teammates and nothing more. He knows that, but he's holding out on a single shred of hope that he'd somehow win the heart of the blonde. With a deep sigh, the man pulled out his phone. Despite his rational side screaming at him to not to do it, he messages Atsumu. I'll do it. That leads us back to where we first started, Atsumu leaning back in his seat, his eyes watching the scenery pass by. Beside him was an anxious black-haired boy. This was nerve-wracking. The blonde looked over to the other. They haven't talked much about the plan. They've barely spoken to each other since they met up this morning, both extremely nervous about the outcome of this whole affair. Atsumu cleared his throat, earning Kyuumi's attention. "Alright, Omi. Omi. It's a nickname." His face retorted in a small grimace, clearly not appreciating the new nickname. "Don't make that face. We got her to act like a couple, remember? I know, I just didn't expect that. Want me to call you something else?" No. Kyuumi cleared his throat. "That's fine." Atsumu's grin grew, his smile blinding the other. "Now come up with one for me." "What? A nickname? You can't just call me Mia the whole time. I will do no such thing. Come on, Omi." The boy whined, his grin turning into a pout. "Fine, Atsumu. Is that the best you got? You gotta do better than that." Kyuumi grumbled. He feels as if his heart will explode if he says anything more endearing than that. "I'll stick to Atsumu." "Fine." The corner of his lips curled up under his mask. He found Atsumu's reactions amusing. It was nice to have a one-on-one conversation with the blonde. "Another thing, gotta remember to actually act like a couple. Promise not to cross any boundaries, cause I know you don't like touch much." They talked about various things concerning the details of their fake relationship, since Atsumu wanted it to be as convincing as possible. Even if he wanted it to be convincing, the blonde knew there were boundaries that had to be set. He knows there's quite a few things that his boyfriend wouldn't feel comfortable doing, and that was perfectly fine. They came to the agreement of small touches such as holding hands, small pecks on the cheek, and other things along the lines of small loving gestures. Keeping the touches minimal was the easiest way to make sure Kyuumi was comfortable. It was honestly one of Atsumu's top priorities. He'd hate to have the latter resent him by the end of this. Hours flew by as the serious conversation turned into a more light-hearted one, a joke or two being said and the sound of laughter filled the train car. It was the first time Atsumu has ever seen Kyuumi smile and laugh so much. He couldn't help but think that this meant they were growing closer. By the time 4 o'clock rolled around, the train pulled into the Hyogo station. Both the men got up from their seat, grabbing all their luggage before hopping off the train. As they stepped off, Atsumu looked back at the other, reaching his out for the other to take. His eyes dropped down to the outstretched hand before he silently took it, earning a huge smile from the blonde. Kyuumi can feel his face growing hot. He didn't know holding someone's hand would feel so comforting, so warm. It was a strange feeling. But he liked it. They flagged down a cab and took the ride down to his parents' place. It wasn't far from the station, only 15 minutes, but those 15 minutes felt as if they went on forever. The two arrived at Atsumu's childhood home, the place he and Osamu grew up in their whole lives. The blonde got out of the cab first, jogging over to the other side to open the door for Kyuumi. "You ready?" Atsumu reached out his hand to him once again. Kyuumi took a deep breath before placing his hand in the other's. "Yep." He got out of the car with the help of Atsumu. They retrieved their luggage from the trunk and bidding the cab adieu. The cab drove off as they stood there, staring at the house in front of them. A small smile rested on Atsumu's lips, a warm feeling filling his chest. He was finally home. He felt the other squeeze his hand, causing him to look over only to see the ravenet staring at the house, an unreadable look in his eyes. They approached the house, their fingers interlaced with each other, their eyes nervously glancing at each other before Atsumu raised his hand to knock. Shouts could be heard as footsteps approached the other side of the door. It swung open to reveal a petite woman. Her dark brown hair with a single grey streak was pulled back into a bun. The woman froze as her eyes fell upon the two men standing at her front door. "Hi Ma,"